so we actually divided historiography or history in three parts. In the first chapter also, I have taught in previous lecture also, I have said about that or I have described that in detail. Like history is divided or historiography is divided into three parts. Okay, or there are three divisions of historiography: ancient historiography, then medieval historiography, and third modern historiography. So we studied about ancient historiography and the medieval historiography of India or various Indian rulers and emperors. But now we are going to study about the modern historiography. Modern historiography is related to pre-independence era, during independence, and little bit about the post-independence. But mostly it is about the pre-independence era and during independence. I mean whatever activities happened during the 1947 independence. Okay, so it is related to British rule. Okay, pre-British rule as well as post-British rule. But mostly it is related to pre-British rule. Now, history of British India. You may call it a modern historiography related to nothing but history of British India. Okay. So now in the 20th century, the Indian archaeological exploration and research started under the British rule. Actually, it is the British officials and the British expert, British archaeologists and what you call it, British historiographer or historians mostly started the research in India regarding or to dig out the truths about the Indian history. Okay, because Indian historiography mostly based on mythology. Okay, or not on particular real facts. It was not based on real facts. So obviously the British were curious about the Indian history, religion, as well as mythology, myths and all that. Okay, so it is the archaeological exploration started by them. A number of ancient sites were excavated under the supervision of Sir Alexander Cunningham, the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. Now you can see Archaeological Survey of India, its head office is located. Archaeological Survey of India having branch office everywhere in every state. We also have Archaeological Survey of India, a branch office at Mumbai, located at Mumbai, Churchgate. Okay, but its head office is located in New Delhi, and this Archaeological Survey of India was established by Britishers, a British official, and his first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India was nothing but Sir Alexander Cunningham. This is very important statement, particularly from the point of view of exam, especially fill in the blanks, okay, or match the column. This question will come. So this sentence or this statement is very important from the point of view of exam, board exam. Okay. So Sir Alexander Cunningham, under the supervision of him, he was the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. Under his supervision, various ancient sites were excavated or dug out, especially Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, as well as what you call that this one. At Aurangabad there is a Ajanta and Ellora. Ajanta and Ellora. Various, and not only these, various other sites were explored, dug out, okay, or excavated by various British officers or British officials or British historian or archaeologists, but under the guidance and supervision of Sir Alexander Cunningham, the first Director General of Archaeological Survey of India. Okay, so that is the importance of that statement. Now, he chose mainly the site mentioned the Buddhist text for this purpose. But mostly he didn't rely on Hindu text or Hinduism. Mostly he searched for Buddhist text, okay, and he chose Buddhist sites. Harappan civilization and Mohenjo-daro, whatever they found there is the Hinduism. It is related to Hindu religion or Hindu civilization, okay, or Indus civilization. In short, Indus civilization. But most of the other sites, okay, they excavated or they dug out, that is related to Buddhist text, especially this what you call that Ajanta and Ellora caves. Okay, and even at Borivali there are particular caves, Mahakali caves. Okay, at this Andheri, and another cave I don't know its exact name, but it is in the Borivali East. All these caves or all these what is the artifacts were excavated by Sir Alexander Cunningham and other historians related to it. British officials or British historiographer under his guidance. Now it shows mainly the site mentioning the Buddhist texts for this purpose. Harappan civilization was discovered during the tenure of Sir John Marshall. Okay, even Harappan civilization, Harappan civilization is nothing but most part of it is in whatever the Pakistan. Okay, it is in Pakistan's Punjab. There is a Punjab in India and Punjab also in Pakistan. Punjab, a state of Punjab in India, you know very well. But there is also a state of Punjab in Pakistan. Even Punjab was also divided. It is not just after the division of India and Pakistan, or separation or disintegration of Pakistan from India. Means Pakistan got independent not only from British but also from India. At that time, Punjab was also divided. Half of the Punjab went to Pakistan. Okay, went to the Pakistani government, and half came to. So obviously, you can see after the survey of India, he chose mainly the site mentioned the Buddhist text for this purpose. Now Harappan civilization. So Harappan civilization, most part of it was under the Pakistan's territory. But at that time, Pakistan and India were not separated. So these various Harappan sites and Mohenjo-daro, Harappan and Mohenjo-daro civilization, Indus Valley civilization were discovered by Sir John Marshall and various other British official or British historian of those era. Okay. Now, because of this discovery, the antiquity of Indian history could be traced to the 3rd millennium BC or even earlier. So, because of this discovery, that Harappan and Mohenjo-daro civilization actually, when it was discovered, then all the people, not only British official or British historiographer, but also all the people of India, they were asked that our civilization, Indian civilization, dates back to 3rd millennium BCE, before Common Era. So you can understand the gravity of that or magnitude of that discovery. Magnitude of discovery of Harappan and Mohenjo-daro civilization. You can see here Alexander Cunningham, third Director General of Archaeological Survey of India, and John Marshall, under his leadership, under his supervision, they discovered Harappa and Mohenjo-daro civilization. Now, many British officials in India wrote about Indian history. And many, obviously, at that time, they were most literate and they were curious about Indian history, Indian historiography, Indian people, religion, culture, social values, and various other things. So, obviously, many British officials in India wrote about Indian history. Their writing displayed strong influence of the colonial policies of the British. But obviously, they were biased. Whatever they wrote, it was biased. They regarded their culture as superior, British regarded themselves as superior, and they regarded our culture, our country, our social values as inferior. So their writing was not unbiased but biased. Okay. Now, 3 volumes of the history of British India written by James Mill were published in 1857. 1817. You can see the James Mill. Now, 3 volumes of the history of British India. Actually, the history of British India was written by James Mill, who was published in 1817. This was the first book about the history of India, but wrote by Britisher James Mill. This is the first book. This was the first book at that time, because nobody wrote the book. Okay, everybody published their articles. Okay, most of the historians, most of the particular archaeologists, they publish various articles related to Indian history and Indian historiography, Indian culture, religion, and all that. But James Mill was the first person. He was the first British officer, or you may call it a historiographer or histographer. Okay, historian. Okay, he wrote the first book, that is nothing but the history of British India, and it was published in 1817. It was the first book. Now, this was the first book on Indian history written by a British historian. Before that, not a single British historian published his own book. Obviously, they published various kinds of documents, various kinds of documents or articles, but they never wrote the book. And before that, not a single Indian historian wrote the book. So that was the first book. Now, it clearly reflects an absence of objective perspective and prejudice about various aspects of Indian culture. And James Mill was also a British officer. He was a British historian. So obviously, whatever he wrote, it was also biased. He regarded British culture, British Empire. It is a divine. It is a divine gift. Okay? He regarded it was a divine gift of God, that we have every right to rule inferior Indians. He regarded Indian culture, Indian people, Indian race inferior. So whatever history you wrote about India, that was bias. Okay, and it created inferiority complex among the Indians. Now, so it was having a lot of prejudice about various Indian culture. The history of India, written by Mount Stuart Elphinstone, Governor of Bombay, now Mumbai, was published in 1841. So in 1841, Mount Stuart Elphinstone, Elphinstone Station. After Paran there is a Elphinstone Station. So that Elphinstone Station was nicknamed after the Mount Stuart Elphinstone. So obviously the history of India was written by Mount Stuart Elphinstone. He was also the governor of Bombay, British governor of Bombay or Mumbai. So he wrote the book, The History of India. But obviously he was also governor. He was also a British officer, a British governor ruling Bombay. So obviously whatever he wrote, that is also biased. That is also biased, or full of creating inferiority complex among the Indians. And he regarded Britishers or British Empire as a superior one, divine one. It is a divine right to rule India. That was his thinking. Now you can see, go further. The period of Maratha Empire is very important in the Indian history. But period of Maratha Empire is very important. Now how? Grand Duff's name stands out among the British officers who wrote about Maratha history. Now Grand Duff was also a British officer. And first time he wrote, or he concentrated on focus not on the whole Indian history, but only Maratha Empire, or history related to Maratha Empire or Maharashtra. He focused on Maratha Empire or Maharashtra. Who wrote about Maratha history? He wrote a book entitled A History of Marathas. A History of Marathas. Now this book is published in the 3 volumes. It was published in the 3 volumes. Grand Duff's writing also shows the British inclination of condemning Indian culture and history. And even Grand Duff also, I already told you, all these British officers or British historians, they were totally biased. Whatever they wrote, it was totally biased. And they have a little bit of superiority complex. They were superior. Okay, and they regarded Indian culture or Maratha culture, Maratha Empire or all that inferior. So his writing also condemned Indian culture and Indian history. Now, similar tendencies witnessed in Colonel Todd's writing about Rajasthan history. Now Colonel Todd wrote about the Rajasthan history, but the same way there are similar trend. There is no change in their trend, their thinking pattern, that British Empire or Britishers are superior, our culture is superior, and your culture, Indian culture is inferior, or Indian people are inferior. In their writing also, in whatever they wrote about the various kind of history about India, whatever they wrote, it was biased. It was biased. Now, the 2 volumes written by Wilson Hunter on Indian history show somewhat impartial treatment of the subject. But the first British historian, a first British officer, William Wilson Hunter, not Burns, sorry, William Wilson Hunter, he wrote that Indian history, but it was impartial. He gave impartial treatment. Whatever he wrote, it was unbiased. Okay, it was unbiased. There was no any kind of prejudice. There was not any kind of a prejudice while writing Indian history. His writing was totally unbiased, impartial. He never thought that our culture, the British culture, or British people are superior and Indian people are inferior. He gave equal treatment to all of them. And that's why his writing was what we call that impartial. And he gave impartial treatment while writing Indian history. Like he was the first British officer who was totally unbiased. Now, Nilkant Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade were two Indian historians who took upon the task of exposing the limitations of grander study. So, now obviously, at that time we used to read, obviously, all the historical aspect were from the British point of view, British officers' point of view, and I already told you they were biased, and they were prejudiced, and they regarded Indian culture, or they condemned Indian culture. Obviously, they regarded Indian culture as inferior, Indian people as inferior. Okay, but it was the Nilkant Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade. These were the two Indian historians. They exposed the grand depths. They exposed his writing. They exposed his biased views about Indian culture or Indian people. They exposed his prejudicial views. Okay, prejudicial views about India or Indian people or Indian culture. Okay, or how he condemned Indian culture and how he regarded British Empire as a divine. Okay, all these things were exposed by these two historians or historiographer, Nilkant Janardhan Kirtane and Vishwanath Kashinath Rajwade. Now, Indian historiography, various ideological framework that we will study in the next lecture.